Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Heart of Trauma, Healing the Embodied Brain in the Context of Relationships by Badenoch. Foreword by Stephen W. Porges. Narrated by Leslie Howard. The main thing, as Chivalou had said, was to not only shy away from judging the forms seeds and people took in order to survive strange conditions created by people who'd lost their seeds, but as a spiritual human of a truly indigenous core, to simply keep growing the seeds in every sense, so they could have a place to direct their ever-ready magical manifestation. The holy in the seeds had to direct. We, as people, had to provide spiritual ground and physical fertile space and earth for the seeds to do what they already very well knew how to do. The seeds had always been there. The seeds had always been home. It was up to us to be at home, keeping the seeds alive. Martine Prechtel. The Unlikely Peace at Kachumaquig, The Parallel Lives of People as Plants, Keeping the Seeds Alive. Foreword by Stephen W. Porges. Safety is Treatment. In The Heart of Trauma, Badenoch artfully provides a narrative to explain the neurobiological mechanisms through which trauma disrupts the capacity to feel safe and underscores that safety is the treatment. As elaborated in The Heart of Trauma, successful therapy accesses the third adaptive system and leverages this system within the therapeutic setting to contain defense and enable co-regulation. The Heart of Trauma succinctly informs the therapist that the objective of trauma therapy is to enable the client to experience feelings of safety. This well-constructed book describes the scaffolding of disparate neural systems with interactive pathways detecting, interpreting, choreographing, and archiving our experiences. The listener is engaged in a vivid narrative, linking our neurobiology to mental processes and overt behaviors. As we listen, we are informed that the capacity to feel safe in the arms of another, which is the sine qua non of our survival, is selectively damaged by trauma. We learn that effective therapy incorporates an understanding of the mechanisms through which an individual can feel safe, as well as understands, witnesses, and respects the vulnerability of these mechanisms to trauma. By emphasizing contemporary neuroscience, the volume sketches a narrative of how the nervous system is involved in supporting pro-social interactions and enabling defense. When neural pathways down-regulate defensive strategies, social distance is reduced and opportunities to connect and co-regulate are optimized. When contextual cues convey risk to the nervous system, defensive strategies are disinhibited and activated to reflexively protect the individual by increasing the physical and psychological distance from a potential predator. Although optimizing survival, chronic recruitment of defense strategies limits opportunities for pro-social interactions and functionally marginalizes the individual from social contact. Evolution of the nervous system enabled humans to access and regulate two defensive strategies. One is associated with the increased energy necessary for mobilization and fight-or-flight behaviors, and the other is associated with a conservation of energy and manifests in a massive reduction of behavior, enabling the mammalian ancestors of humans to appear to be inanimate. For humans, this system, when recruited, may result in a behavioral shutdown and a mental state of dissociation. Moreover, evolution provided humans and other mammals with a third adaptive system that downregulates the sensitivity to trigger defense by detecting and responding to cues of safety. The third system functions as a safety system and provides the neural basis for co-regulation and feelings of trust. It is through the lens of this hierarchical model, proposed in polyvagal theory, that the heart of trauma explains the neural mechanisms through which trauma disrupts the capacity to feel safe. This knowledge provides insights into re-engaging the safety system to effectively and efficiently contain defense reactions. Insights into the mechanisms that disrupt feeling safe inform therapists to develop trauma treatments designed to awaken the circuits that enable feelings of safety. Underlying global survival-related behavioral strategies, the nervous system is involved in choreographing a complex scenario by shifting neurophysiological states that serve as neural platforms for more expansive emergent behaviors. In one case, the neural platform efficiently signals and receives cues of safety, and in the others, the neural platform efficiently signals and receives cues of danger or life threat. In response to cues of safety, the nervous system promotes a state of safety, with emergent properties including an increased proximity, openness, and welcoming to others, a bias towards exploration, a sense of presence, and a neural desire or drive to co-regulate with another. As opportunities for pro-social behavior expand, the individual experiences a great opportunity for the efficient co-regulation that optimizes mental and physical health. Since optimized health is a product of the interactions among humans, experiencing a state of safety promotes social and societal health. Thus, a state of feeling safe functionally transforms the individual from a solitary to a social being. In contrast to emergent properties of feeling safe, the emergent properties of defensive states functionally transform the individual from a social being into a solitary individual. Defensive strategies encapsulate the individual and limit options for neurophysiological regulation from co-regulation to a more inefficient and limited mode of self-regulation with mental and physical health consequences. In humans, defense strategies provide survival resources when survival is challenged, but these strategies evolved for short-term fixes and not for chronic use. Responses to trauma frequently shift the neural platform to optimize defense. As a byproduct of this shift in neural state, behavioral and psychological strategies shift towards aggression or withdrawal, while opportunities for social interactions and feelings of trust and love become vulnerabilities and are adaptively minimized. Although this shift in neural state optimizes survival through defensive strategies, survival needs of co-regulation and connectedness are compromised. As defense is optimized, it reflexively dominates personal experience and limits the neural resources that foster social interactions and co-regulation. Because humans evolved to connect and to co-regulate, the consequences of being functionally stuck in a neural platform that is optimized for defense compromises all aspects of human health and well-being. Although defensive reactions are necessary for survival, optimally, these strategies should be recruited for acute transitory challenges and not for chronic states of vigilance. Although chronic states of vigilance prepare the individual to efficiently defend, the neural demands to maintain this state result in an adaptive retuning of the autonomic nervous system. This retuning optimizes defense by reducing the latency to defend, but also manifests in the autonomic nervous system, promoting an array of mental disorders. For example, anxiety, depression, PTSD, etc., and physical disorders, hypertension, irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, dysautonomia, migraine, etc. Thus, clinicians collaborating with survivors of trauma observe the behavioral and emotional defensive reactivity of their clients, even in the supportive context of a therapy session. Clinicians are also aware of the physical and health symptoms that frequently appear to be comorbid with survivors of trauma. As we learn from the heart of trauma, these comorbidities are manifestations of the chronic recruitment of the autonomic nervous system to support defense strategies. In the long term, the human need to be social supplants other survival needs beyond the most primitive needs of oxygen, food, water, and physical safety. Social isolation is a powerful disruptor of human behavior and physiological health. In the clinical domain of traumatology, isolation, whether physical or psychological, is conceptualized as neglect. In addition, other forms of social marginalization, such as bullying, are interpreted by our nervous system similarly to isolation. Isolation triggers feelings of despair that are captured metaphorically by a nervous system signaling its viscera to initially become aggressive, that is, fight or flight behaviors, and then subsequently to shut down and appear to be dormant. These responses and this sequence are encoded in our genes. Typical individuals normally express defensive reactions and spontaneously repair the ruptures in social contact that follows defensive reactions. It is this ability to rapidly and seamlessly repair ruptures that is compromised in the social world of survivors of trauma. Functionally, the survivor's nervous system resists being coaxed and cajoled into a state of safety. It is a nervous system that obstinately refuses to dismiss its responsibility to protect and defend. These neurobiological features, which are frequently expressed following trauma, are independent of volitions, desires, and even explicit cognitive narratives. Survivors of trauma may have thoughts and mental images of welcoming others in a warm embrace, but their bodies are hypervigilant and resist engagement to protect and defend. In sculpting the theme embedded in the heart of trauma, Bonnie Badenoch brilliantly centers on the clinical question of how therapists guide survivors of trauma to recover their capacity to connect with humanity when their bodies are in a chronic state of defense. By understanding the mechanisms underlying the trauma survivor's journey into hopelessness and despair, Bonnie Badenoch empowers the clinician with the knowledge that safety is treatment, to develop strategies to transform their clients from being encapsulated in their isolation to reconnecting with others as social, trusting beings. Preface. In 2012, I began facilitating my first year-long interpersonal neurobiology IPNB immersion training at the invitation of Deborah Dana in Portland, Maine. I had no idea it would be possible for this group of 24 to deepen into this work as they did, walking a delicate line between personal work and training, offering the deepest respect for one another, while cultivating a safe space for didactic and experiential exploration. I believe the depth of transformation during that year surprised and touched all of us. By the end of our time, 2 themes emerged that have lingered with me: the powerful influence of the cultural context enveloping us as we do our work, and the importance of presence for holding what wants to unfold in the space between patient and therapist. If you had asked any of us at the beginning if we felt we were present with our clients, all of us would have said yes. Yet by the end of our time, I believe everyone would have agreed that a different felt sense of what presence can be had emerged. An openness experienced throughout the body, listening from increasing stillness, fewer thoughts and less planning, a deepening trust that such holding can allow our patients' wisdom to reveal itself. We could not have captured this state in words at the beginning, because it had to be felt to be known. It slowly came into being in the context of holding one another, grounding in wisdom about the embodied and relational brain, attending to pace, and cherishing the unfolding quiet. Another surprise for me was how the conversation about the state of our culture persistently entwined itself with this experience of presence. On the first day, we spent time deepening our understanding of the seminal work of Ian McGilchrist concerning the wisdom and beauty of our divided brains. Since research in the last decade has made it clear that both hemispheres fire for everything we think, feel, say, or do, interest in the topic of hemispheric differences waned. However, McGilchrist's understanding illuminates not what each hemisphere does, but how each perceives and then creates the world. His abundant and meticulous exploration of the research supports the perspective that we are currently immersed in a culture operating primarily according to the viewpoint of the left. This hemisphere sees through the lens of a relationally disconnected manufacturing mentality that we can recognize in the accelerating pace of life, the emphasis on behavior and task over relationship, the tendency to value algorithms over individual process, the polarized and judgmental either-or way of seeing the world, and many other characteristics. This affects the systems within which we work, the way we see one another and define mental health, and even our capacity to be truly present with each other. My own ongoing interest in the workings of implicit, embodied memory began to add another stream to this conversation as I wondered how this left shift might be leaving its mark on us. We are continually making implicit memories because they do not require conscious attention to be encoded. They stay with us as surges of feeling, behavioral impulses, bodily sensations, and perceptions that, when reawakened, color everything, because implicit memories have the felt sense of happening now, no matter how long ago they may have been encoded. Then I stumbled across an astonishing piece of information. We encode 11 million bits of sensory information per second, perceptually, implicitly, while encoding 6 to 50 bits consciously, explicitly. This suggests that many more of these embodied experiences are taking up residence within us than explicit memories, almost entirely below the level of conscious awareness, yet influencing everything we think, feel, say, and do. We are literally marinating in our left-shifted milieu all the time, mostly without our conscious awareness. No wonder we struggle with even having a felt sense of what presence might mean, in the midst of such strong unseen encouragement to focus on the task of therapy. In the 7-year-long trainings since the first one, the same pattern of concerns unfolded and took center stage in our awareness. These ways of understanding the interplay of culture and presence made sense of so many challenges we were facing in our clinical work, from our interactions with insurance companies to the primary focus on evidence-based treatments, guided more by protocols than responsiveness to what is alive in the moment. We not only gained clarity at the level of concepts, but found ourselves attending to our way of being together in the training as we supported one another in slowly making room for our inherent relational capacities to reclaim us. We discovered that our inner work with ourselves, particularly as it was being supported by this group, was absolutely foundational to our ability to be with our patients. Our patients, all of them dealing with trauma in their own ways, began to experience a different level of safety in the room as our quiet receptivity increased. Many of them seemed able to settle into greater depths of healing. We also noticed that we were less tired at the end of our clinical days and felt ourselves to be carrying the suffering we were sharing with our patients a little differently than ever before. Out of these deep relational encounters, both in the trainings and the unfolding therapeutic story, this book began to shape itself, even though it still seems challenging to hold these lived moments in words. The hope is to cultivate a felt sense of both the culture and this way of being present, coupled with a strong, scientifically grounded case for doing the work of opening to hemispheric balance and relational deepening. This intention seems to call for right-centric metaphorical language to embody the felt sense, even while seeking to convey solid understanding of what neuroscience tells us about healing from trauma in the context of relationships, a challenging combination at times. It is no small thing to offer to enter this consideration of suffering. To truly deepen into the nature of trauma means that our own wounds will be touched. In the hope that you will feel accompanied as you move into this tender territory, I want to offer several possible ways to listen. This book itself may be a kind of companion for you if you prefer to listen by yourself. I certainly want to be with you and have written with that in mind. If you would like a bit more interpersonal support, you might want to share the practices that are sprinkled throughout with a partner who is also listening to the book. Patty Whipfler, a parent advocate extraordinaire, has assisted mothers and fathers in forming listening partnerships for decades now, and I have borrowed this suggestion about the value of companionship from her. The deepening that may happen when we are heard is one of the central themes of this book, so practicing together can support embodying the principles. A third and possibly radical suggestion is to invite a companion for the whole experience. The Brain Savvy Therapist workbook suggested studying with a listening partner is a way to deepen into embodiment of IPNB. We regularly receive emails from people who have been together in this way, expressing their amazement at the depth of learning and healing that unfolds in the space between. For this experience, you might choose a partner to share passages or even the whole book aloud. In the midst of this busy world, that's quite a shift from the way we usually approach information. I trust you will find the way that is most supportive for you. There are way stations for reflection sprinkled throughout this book, invitations to pause, to sink more deeply into the felt sense of what we are speaking about. Their purpose is twofold: to slow the pace a bit so that the words don't pull us too far into the left hemisphere, where meaning has a tendency to get lost, and if we choose to share with another, to offer some oases where the deepening may be supported by our reflections of each other. The pauses also invite us to practice the very non-judgmental presence that we hope to offer our patients and others. In addition to the way stations offered here, you will likely find other moments when you are alerted by a rise of attention in your body that a pause is called for. It would be strongly supportive of deeply internalizing this perspective to honor that when it happens. Finally, while this is a clinical book in many ways, it is most of all about how we might each become a therapeutic presence in the world. What we are coming to understand through relational neuroscience about the astonishing ways we are interwoven suggests that how we walk about in our daily lives will touch everyone, often below the level of conscious awareness, like the intertwined roots on the cover of this book. Having had the gift of support in cultivating these perspectives for the last 14 years, I have become convinced that gradually embodying this wisdom, a lifelong process, is to quietly participate in the health of the world. From the viewpoint of becoming a therapeutic presence, I am mainly using the word people for those with whom we interact in whatever capacity they come to us, including as patients. There are some places where patience also appears, as I hear this word conjuring not someone who is ill, but a person who bears suffering with grace. This brings me to another word that needs a place here: sacred. As we move into close contact with one another, something sometimes happens that can't be denied. The space between seems to hold a deepening sense of meaning, expanding vistas of compassion co-suffering of great intensity at times, and then, often quite suddenly, where the two worlds meet, the door is round and open. What happens next is as individual as a fingerprint. An expanded sense of oneness with others, a movement toward action on behalf of those in need, the feeling of being held by the divine, an experience of stillness spreading throughout the body. There is always a sense of something larger, deeper than words unfolding, touching both people in this sacred space between. The gift of being present for such openings, of participating simply by being present, illuminates our work in a way that we may simply call blessed. As this book is unfolding, I am fortunate to be able to consider each chapter with a trusted beloved, or two or three, and what emerges from these shared explorations amounts to co-authorship, as there is an astonishing and often unexpected deepening of meaning in these conversations. I wish you many such experiences as you make your way through this book accompanied. Introduction. Being present in the context of culture. We are about to enter the tender territory of human suffering. With grief and hope of healing as our companions, we will begin by exploring the roots of trauma in culture and families, including the pain and fear inherent in our daily lives. Deepening our understanding of these sources of suffering and accompanied by an understanding of our embodied and relational brains, we may find ways to cultivate conditions for deep recovery. The capacity for healing is inherent in us, unfolding in the presence of the long-awaited support. One of the challenges that a culture dominated by left hemisphere concerns offers us is a tendency to remove whatever comes to its attention from the context that holds and informs it. From that viewpoint, the surrounding culture may seem largely irrelevant to the therapeutic process. However, if we remind ourselves that we are taking in 11 million bits of sensory information per second, we may begin to appreciate how profoundly we are implicitly embedded in culture as it shapes us below the level of conscious awareness. How might we understand this implicit and explicit cultural context within which both our traumas and our movement toward healing unfold? How might it be influencing our own lives and what we are bringing as we enter the therapeutic relationship? These may seem like large and abstract questions, but in reality, culture is one tangible and highly influential foundation of our daily practice. To begin, we are all in a stew of too much information together, patient and therapist, shaping the nature of our encounter with each other. We live in a very different world than we did even 30 years ago. According to a study by Martin Hilbert and Priscilla Lopez, we are taking in the equivalent of 174 newspapers worth of information each day, about 5 times as much as in 1986, overwhelming our brain's processing capacity. As with most social science research, this statistic holds a metaphorical more than a factual truth for us as individuals, since each of us is probably taking in more or less than the 174 newspapers worth. Nevertheless, the felt sense of being flooded likely strikes a chord of recognition in most of us. Simply driving down the street, I am aware of the different feeling in my body if the median is filled with signs encouraging me to vote for particular people, rather than populated by daffodils. Whether we feel comfortable considering this deluge to be its own kind of potential trauma or not, it is certainly changing the way we are able to attend to each other. I feel the pull of an email and the insistent call of an incoming text as much as anyone else, while a close colleague who is a dedicated trauma therapist sadly told me that she repeatedly finds herself so distracted by the amount and content of email she imagines piling up while she sits with her dear patients that she realizes her presence in that moment is being compromised. We so often hear parents telling us of their longing to connect with their video game and social media-absorbed teens that it has become a cliché. Now research is telling us that children and teens are sad, exhausted, and angry as their parents repeat.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?